Hi everyone, this is Radharajeshwari. Today we'll be discussing on the topic of HDBSCAN. This clustering algorithm is identified to overcome the limitations of density-based scan algorithm, that is DB-scan algorithm. If we recollect, in DB-scan algorithm, we will have a fixed value of epsilon, which is nothing but radius, bandwidth, identified to form a dense region. To identify a dense region. From that, we will be forming the cluster. So here we will not have a fixed epsilon. Instead of that, we will have fixed min samples, which is nothing but number of points, number of neighboring points to identify the core point. So this min samples will be kept fixed in this algorithm, and the density is not kept fixed. So we can identify clusters in varying densities. So the density is open, so we can identify cluster in varying densities. Instead, we will wholly rely on min samples to form clusters in this algorithm. So hierarchical density based spatial clustering of application with noise clustering algorithm that is designed to uncover clusters in dataset based on the density distribution of data points. How it works? First, we will transform the data points to space based on the density. So here, first thing we will do is we will find a mutual reachability distance graph for the points. So if we have 5 as min samples, then we will find a core distance for the data point, and then we will find a mutual reachability distance for all the data points. From that, we will construct a graph, which is nothing but mutual reachability graph, mutual reachability distance graph. So from that graph, we will build a minimum spanning tree. So the graph is created connecting data points within a certain distance threshold. Certain distance here is nothing but mutual reachability distance. Based on that distance, we will create a minimum spanning tree. And once we form the minimum spanning tree, we will see the connected components in the graph are identified, and we will form a hierarchical structure of potential clusters based on the mutual reachability distance. Here we will have a dendrogram. From that, we will condense the hierarchy. Here, the minimum cluster size parameter comes into picture. So based on the minimum cluster size parameter, we can think whether we need to merge the smaller cluster or we need to keep it as such. Here we need to decide whether we are going to merge the smaller cluster into larger, more stable ones, or we are going to keep it as such. So once we condense the hierarchy, once we merge the cluster into larger one and more stable ones, we will extract the stable clusters. Here the density varies over a range of density. We will be seeing how the clusters behave. So this is a working process of HDBSCAN algorithm. The important parameters of HDBSCAN is min samples and minimum cluster size. It is advisable to give min sample and minimum cluster size to get results in HDBSCAN in an effective manner. The advantages and limitation of HDBSCAN is it is robust to varying density. We already know we are not fixing the density, so it is robust to varying density, and it is noise tolerant. It is identifying noise in an effective manner, and it is scalable. It can handle large data set, and it is fast. A limitation is it is sensitive. Here anyway, we are specifying min samples and min cluster size. It is sensitive to min cluster size. So based on that, it is sensitive, and it is limited interpretability. Users can feel difficult to decide whether they can have the cluster as such or they can merge it. The step of condensing the hierarchy. Either they can merge smaller cluster into larger to get stable ones, or they can keep it as such. In that part, the users might find it a little bit difficult to interpret the cluster behavior. Thank you.